Okay, well, welcome everyone to the second Sustainability Forum of 2020. If you were with us last month for the Food Forum, welcome back. If this is your first forum, welcome. Tonight's discussion centers around Strategy 6 of the A20 plan, which is to enhance the resilience of our people and our place. Among many elements included in this strategy, one intersection is how humans who live in an urban setting interact with the natural world. So to help give us a better understanding of the natural assets we have in the Ann Arbor area and the many ways that we can best care for these natural assets, as well as how you can participate in the human-nature relationship, we have a great panel with us here tonight. I'll introduce each right before they speak, but they do include Jason Frenzel, who is the Volunteer and Stewardship Coordinator at the Huron River Watershed Council, Susan Bryan, who is the Rain Garden Coordinator for the Washtenaw County Water Resources Office, Sean Reynolds, who's the 10,000 Trees Coordinator with the Office of Sustainability and Innovations, and Melissa Schacht, the Coordinator of the Adopted Park Program at the City of Ann Arbor. Briefly, I want to go over how tonight will go. We'll do each of the panelists give their presentation, and then at the end, we'll open the floor for Q&A. You do have the option to submit questions using the chat function at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A. You can type them and submit them at any time throughout tonight, and we'll get to those when we can. And in the meantime, we're going to start with Jason Frenzel. So Jason has been a manager of volunteers since 2001 in Ann Arbor. His work at the City of Ann Arbor and now at the Huron River Watershed Council has given him the opportunity to oversee a wide array of volunteer programming related to ecological initiatives. He helped create Ann Arbor's Adopted Park program and Give 365. He is an advisor to his local volunteer managers network and served 2 terms on the National Association of Volunteer Managers Board, including 2 years as president. Jason has held his certification in volunteer administration and international accreditation for volunteer engagement professionals since 2009. He also served as a city council member in Ann Arbor. So thank you for joining us, Jason. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Love the sustainability forums forever. They're great. Just move a couple things around here. So yeah, please drop some questions in the chat whenever you have them. Zach will notify me that they come through. I forgot to let Zach know that I'm also the chair of the local Sierra Club board this year. So many hats, most of us wear many hats. But today, as the Huron River Watershed Council, we're just going to give you a broad overview of some of our programming, some of the environmental damages that we see in the Huron, as well as some of the successes we've had, and finish up with a few ways that you can get involved. So the Huron River Watershed is a bit over 900 square miles here in Southeast Michigan. That's a medium-sized watershed for Michigan. We have 104 navigable, paddleable river miles. So that's from the Milford or Proud Lake area down to Lake Erie. Take a really experienced paddler about 3 days to do. Us normal humans, it would take somewhere between 5 and 7 days to paddle that distance. We have 23 sub-watersheds. The watershed is home to 650,000 humans and innumerable bugs and fish. There will be a quiz at the end. Some of the major projects that the Huron River Watershed Council conducts, our major work is to study the river, its quality, and that of the sub-watersheds also. So on the top row here, you can see some of our citizen science data collection, which we conduct year-round and have done so for decades. Our benthic macroinvertebrate study, try to say that one 3 times really fast, benthic macroinvertebrate. Those are the bugs that are in the water. That's been going on for 27 or 28 years now. Sister program is our chemistry and flow monitoring program. and we do a natural areas assessment program, all of which are to rate the health of these ecosystems so that we can see the trends over time of the improvements or the lack thereof in our natural water areas. In the natural assessments program, we send the data from that to our land trust peers to protect our most pristine natural areas from development and agricultural lands, to protect agricultural lands also to make sure that we are protecting those headwater areas where groundwater infiltration is critical for long-term health of the river and the streams. We go on from studying to protecting through the natural areas program, but also we protect through our River Up program, which is an an economic driver program. It's all about the connection between our recreationalists and our cities. So how do we ensure that when recreationists come down the river, they can access needed infrastructure to go to the bathroom, or in normal times, go out to lunch or something of that nature. And that's to drastically try to improve people's interactions with the river. I'll tell you a little bit more about the history there in a minute. We do a bunch of climate change work. We were the first location in partnership with the city of Ann Arbor and the county to have a climate change downscale modeling program where we brought all the national models for climate change to a very local level, identifying what the challenges were going to be here. Mostly that's, of course, related to stormwater management, which Susan will touch on a little bit. Also touch on dam management, and for our natural areas friends and parks friends, trees and species that were likely to stay here and some that were likely to move out and move in. All this information goes into watershed management planning, which are the ways that large governments work, long-term management plans. And so that's all the data and all the challenges go into there, and we prescribe a set of priorities for municipalities, our municipal partners to take. And then we work to seek funding to help them solve those next priorities. Historically, the Huron River was a working river, as most medium and large size rivers in the nation were. What that means is that they were a great way to transport materials, both get materials to our plants, but also to remove the waste from the plants and the municipalities and homes. This led to 5 Great Lakes rivers catching on fire in the 1960s because there was so much petroleum loading that they were coated with petroleum. And so caught on fire. The Cuyahoga is the most notable, of course, historically. This is near the Main Street area in Ann Arbor. This is looking down from the Bluffs natural area across the river. The train tracks are still in the same location. Of course, our River Up program and many of our municipalities have worked to turn around the way that we use the river. Instead of having it be a dumping ground, have it being a recreational connectivity and an asset to our community, which those of us who have paddled in the river, gone down to the Ann Arbor Cascades, definitely see that that positive recreational use happening sometimes a little bit more than we're used to. But that's it's a much better improvement than the river catching on fire. So generally speaking, the threats to our water body, and most water bodies in the nation, definitely in the East, are in this order: land use, in some ways non-point source pollution, and hydrologic challenges, which are related to the other two. In group conversations, I would ask what you see in this photo that's sort of typical for the U.S. Land use. What do you see here that's a problem for our environment? Obviously, it's great for this guy who's getting some sunshine, apparently. Anyway, the monoculture of grass is a problem. The lack of diversity for insects and other animals to use is definitely problematic. The fertilizers and pesticides that have to go into it, which to create that monoculture and sustain it, because it's not a healthy ecosystem. Those chemicals are problematic. I'll go into the impervious surfaces quite a little bit. The roads and the sidewalks, the roof in this picture, and the parking lot. Those impervious surfaces move water from the landscape, really quickly into our local storm drains instead of allowing them to infiltrate or percolate into the ground and become groundwater. And then there's, you know, the most invasive species on the planet. That guy in the front there. In 1973-74, the Clean Water Act outlawed a bunch of different types of pollution in waterways, and it has done drastic work to improve the water quality. We definitely don't have rivers catching on fire anymore. Through the 80s and 90s, most point source pollution, like this pipe, is an example of, were removed. We still find them rarely, but they are nearly all gone. So our issue at this point is non-point source pollution, which is just spread across the landscape. So you think about our roads. Our roads have a little bit of pollution on them at all times because cars are dripping oil sometimes, or we have to put salt down in the winter. The city of Ann Arbor does mix salt and sand to try to minimize the amount of salt that they use. But we still use a little bit of it in a lot of places, and that accumulates to be a more significant problem. One of the things I like to ask people is, if you own a car or you've known somebody to own a car, you likely know that they have to change their tires on occasion. And if they have to change their tires, why do they have to change their tires? And of course, the answer is because the tread is gone or falling off. And so you ask, where does the tread go? What is the tread made up of? The tread, of course, goes into the local roadway and is then washed down in a big rain event into our local storm drains, which then go directly into local creek or the river. So even just by using our cars, generally speaking, we create non-point source pollution. The same is true of utilizing pesticides and fertilizers on the landscape in any way, erosion that happens in little bits here and there on farm fields, all sorts of different serious problems that only occur because they're widely distributed, and accumulation is a problem. We also have hydrologic problems that are related to those impervious surfaces. So this is a sort of picture drawing of somebody that's in more of a natural landscape, where this young man is in a river or pond when it's raining, and the day after it rains, it's still a comfortable place to be. You can see the water's a little bit higher. In the hydrograph at the top, you can see that the hydrograph raises the water volume really slowly over an extended period of time. In places that are partially developed, meaning that there's a fair amount of impervious surfaces, the amount of water that's coming after a rain increases because it's not soaking into the ground, it's going into the storm drains and then into the creeks or the rivers more quickly. The pulse of water is happening faster also because it's not going through the ground, it's going through pipes. And in highly developed areas, that is exacerbated even more. So right after or during the rain, the pulse is exceptionally high, damaging all sorts of things in the ecosystem, becoming unsafe for users. But then the opposite thing happens too, because you don't have as much groundwater infiltration. You start to have low flows in the dry times. We need groundwater and groundwater infiltration so that in August, when it hasn't rained for a few weeks, there's still base flow coming into the creeks. And if we're pushing all that water through pipes, when it's raining, we have less water in the groundwater and less base flow when it's not raining, which is of course problematic to the life that lives there. In real terms, that looks like inundation and the movement of a lot of material when it's raining. And then in low flow at times, you can see the damage that's done literally to the stream bed here in Miller's Creek, which is in town here. It literally, there's so much water running through the creek that it eats away the creek bed. The creek is destroying its own location and mobilizing soil, which creates phosphorus problems downstream. Whew, that's a bummer. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to a little bit of successes. So these are successes that the Huron River Watershed Council has had with many partners. I'm just going to focus on a few of them, and I'll try to touch on some of the partners that were instrumental in them. But we do nothing alone. In 2007, the Watershed Council's data about phosphorus loading in the Huron River prompted Ann Arbor City Council to promulgate a phosphorus-free ordinance. So in Ann Arbor, since then, if you want to fertilize your lawn, and you think you need phosphorus, you need to test your lawn soil for phosphorus to see if it's in need. And if it's in need, you certainly can use it, but generally here in Southeast Michigan, we have heavy soils. There's lots of phosphorus bound to those heavy soils. And almost exclusively in the heavy soils that we have, we don't need phosphorus. And so loading it into our lawns is excessive and creates downhill problems. Luckily, a few years later, the state of Michigan enacted a law to the same point. So our data and the movement of the city of Ann Arbor helped to protect rivers throughout the state for ages to come, which is pretty cool. The last 10 years, we've been working to ban coal tar sealants. I'm sure you've all seen some people out there putting that black stuff on their driveway, or a company coating it on their on large parking lots. There's two kinds of seal coats. One that's just regular petroleum products that's kind of bad for the environment, and there's another that the filler is made out of coal tar. And coal tar is an industrial byproduct, and it's really, really, really bad. Carcinogenic to humans in fairly small quantities, acutely toxic to water life, and you can imagine putting that stuff on pavement, on parking lots and stuff. That gets to children, and it gets into the waterways through the storm drains. So we've been very successful in getting a bunch of local ordinances passed to ban the coal tar sealant. There is an alternative, so people don't need to stop with this behavior if they don't want to. We're hoping in the next couple of years, as the politics in the state shift a little bit, we'll be able to get this passed at the state level also. It's looking fairly promising. We've done a bunch of fish habitat work. We find different problems in different areas of the watershed, and in the Ypsilanti area, the river is very consistent in its depth and its width. And so it's not a great place for certain ages and sizes of fish. So we did a bunch of work to create plunge pools, diversity of habitat in the river. That looks like putting large woody debris into the river so that the fish have some place to hang out. And when you're paddling down the river, you get to see cool animals like turtles on those logs. Also putting really big rocks in the river so that the water has something to go up and over. It creates microhabitats, also allows for more dissolved oxygen to enter the river, which is just great for everybody. We do a bunch of work with rain gardens, but I'll leave that to Susan to talk about later. We do our natural lands assessment, which helps to protect parkland, both for public use, but also just to put special properties away into preservation long-term. And then we've worked with a bunch of municipal partners to help create new park infrastructure, like this boardwalk in Dexter, where the old dam was removed 12 or 14 years ago. Help with the Huron Waterloo Pathways Initiative to get trails installed. And then, of course, we work to make sure that all the portages, the put-ins and takeouts along the river are easy to use and also in good repair. And then one of our largest successes was 25 years ago or something. A huge section of the Huron River got a natural rivers designation. It goes basically from upstream of Dexter, almost to Milford, down to almost to Ann Arbor. And if you paddle that section, it's really hard to tell that you're near cities. It's just all parkland. It's really beautiful, as is plenty of other places on the Huron, but this area has an extra protection to it, which we are exceptionally thankful for, and I think users are also. So just to wrap up, a little bit of what you can do. We have on our website a bunch of do-it-yourself cleanup information in these crazy and unprecedented times, having people go out and clean up their parks and clean up the river on their own instead of coming into the office and hanging out and cavorting with other volunteers. We're just gonna hold off on the social side of things for the year, as we did last year. But we definitely have some infrastructure on our website to help you go out and just do a little cleanup, have some fun on a paddle or a hike through a park, or even in your own neighborhood doing storm drain labeling and awareness. We've worked with a suite of our municipal partners over the years, including Ann Arbor, to do river cleanups. Ann Arbor's Give 365 helps us to do cleanups in the Ann Arbor area, basically weekly all summer long. and folks collect thousands and thousands of pounds of trash out of the river. Interestingly, different areas of the river have different types of trash, and of course, where there's a lot of recreation, it's the spillover effect of recreation. People that tip their boats over drop stuff in the water, and so that stuff needs to get picked up. We're working currently on a Leave No Trace initiative, which is a sort of pack it in, pack it out concept that hikers and backpackers know. It's like, make sure you take everything home with you that you brought out, but on occasion it's not possible if you flip your boat. We do a bunch of citizen science data collection. Like I said, this is our benthic macroinvertebrate outing in winter. This is for those who love to be in the chilly, beautiful January outdoors. Finding stoneflies, which are indicator species of high water quality health. So we only send people to really, really pristine creeks for this project. And we have a river roundup program, which is during the summer, during the spring and the autumn, where we go to a really wide swath of creeks and rivers. And these events are very family friendly. Super great way to get to know generally unknown locations throughout the watershed. And collect real science data that we use to tell municipalities what's going on and how to fix it. So get involved in really making a difference. I already said that. Oh, and then I wanted to mention that if anybody's listening that's looking for a different type of employment or is at the university, or some exceptional high school students sometime join us for our summer internships. We're recruiting right now. Super fun to get out and do kind of a little bit of all of these things over the summer. So then you can find those on our jobs webpage. I think that's what I have, Zach. Any high pressure questions that I should answer before we wait until the end?
No, that was great. I'm so pleased to hear that you, the ways in which the Watershed Council has kept volunteers engaged even during COVID, because that's a tricky time to keep people plugged in.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge and definitely some delays, but we're feeling comfortable with the direction we're heading.
Well, that's great. That's great news.
Thanks.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. All right. So up next is Susan Bryan. She has been the rain garden coordinator for the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner's Office for 11 years, encouraging, mentoring, and stewarding residents to build rain gardens. She is so proud of Washtenaw County residents for building more than 1,000 rain gardens in the last 10 years. More than 1,300 people have taken her Master Rain Gardener course and learned how to build a rain garden themselves. So now 5 other municipalities have adopted her Rain Gardener educational model across the Great Lakes region, including Cleveland, Ontario, the Rouge River, Columbus, Ohio, and Kalamazoo. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Zach. I'm going to share my screen and you can see my first slide here. How's that? Did that work?
Perfect.
Great. Great. So I'm Susan Bryan, and I am basically the cheerleader of rain gardens in our community, and which I'm so proud of because I did not make the cheerleading squad in high school. So here's my moment and I love, actually, I love seeing other people do amazing things. And I'm really blessed to be able to work with amazing volunteers doing incredible stuff. So what I'm going to talk about today is quickly, because I know a lot of people in Ann Arbor already know what a rain garden is and might not be so clear on maybe the details of exactly how to build it, but that's what the Master Rain Gardener class is for. So I'll direct you there. But I'll talk a little bit about what is a rain garden briefly. Then about some of the amazing work that volunteers are doing in Washtenaw County, and that are, some of them are, were before COVID, and then now what you can do because we have opportunities available. A little bit about the big environmental problem. Jason already touched on it a lot, so I'll skim through that about what's the big environmental problem that a rain garden fixes. And then sort of what you can do What are the things that you can do? Even if you don't want to go out and volunteer, what can you do this spring in your yard? Because now's a good time to garden. All right, so rain gardens are, they function for water quality. When Jason was talking about all the depressing stuff about stuff that gets into the river and affects fish life and it affects whether we can tube in the river. And I mean, I want to go swim. I want to go boat. I want to be able to do these things that are fun in the sunshine. And having polluted water means we can't do that. So that's no good. Having a rain garden helps clean that water. So that's what we do. Something that Jason talked about is non-point source pollution is our biggest polluter right now, which is, I hate to say it, it's us, you know, it's our roads, it's our sidewalks, it's our roofs, all that kind of stuff. But we can take care of our own stormwater on our own property if we want to. So a rain garden is something that it's beautiful. It has beautiful plants in it, but it also treats stormwater. So it's doing this amazing environmental function as well. So how does it do that? It's basically, it puddles the water that would have run down your driveway into the gutter, into the street. So you can see in this slide how the water from the driveway goes into the gutter, into the drain in the street, and then it goes into a pipe and it goes straight to the river. So if you're in the Huron River watershed, then it goes straight to the Huron River. If you live in Saline, then it goes straight to the Saline River. Like none of this gets treated in any way. So I have some gross pictures of stuff that gets in there. And we'll go to that later. But if you put that water into a rain garden, the soil cleans it, which is an amazing thing that soil can do. I don't know if you remember like 3rd grade, watching soil percolate through a beaker of, watching water, dirty water percolate through a beaker of soil, comes out clean. Also, plants play a big part in this. Their deep roots suck up that water and transpire it into the sky, which is clean, automatically clean that way. Over on the right, you can see Kentucky bluegrass, our lawn grass, and how tiny those roots are. But native plants have much deeper roots, and they're like a factory, just cleaning that water. That's their job. Also, you know, like I said, a garden is pretty. We all know this past year, gardens are therapy. They are, you know, they make us happy. You're getting your fingers into the dirt. They also bring all these interesting things to your yard, like beautiful birds like goldfinches, like not just sparrows, like goldfinches, man. And they're just pretty. This rain garden is in Ann Arbor at Bayless and Platt. You can drive by. It's so beautiful. This is Denise Held, Master Rain Gardener. It's the most beautiful garden ever. Like people used to call me, they'd be like driving by, hey, Susan, have you seen this rain garden? Yes, I've seen that rain garden. It's a small town, you know. In order to build a rain garden, all you need is a downspout. So you can see the pipe that's leading to this little garden here with some native plants. That looks like wild geranium, lovely native plant. So really all you're doing is directing the water from your roof or driveway, if you want to get ambitious, into a little garden. And in the garden, the water puddles, not even deep, like 3 inches, 4 inches deep, just puddles in the garden, soaks in, and the native plants soak it up. This is a little better picture where you can see the water comes down the downspout into that garden, and the garden kind of catches it. There's a little lump on the ground, a berm, that catches that water and creates that little puddle before it gets to the driveway. Do you see the driveway on the other side? So the rain garden treats that water before it goes down the driveway into the gutter and into the street. Why build a rain garden? Well, it's fun. Here's Lori and Dexter building her rain garden. Actually, she got her teenage boys to dig it, so she's even happier. She didn't dig that thing herself. There's a Tom Sawyer-esque part of rain gardening for sure. Also, people build rain gardens to solve problems in their yard. You know, like people who have drainage problems, whatever is annoying you about how the water behaves in your yard. Like for instance, this is one of my neighbors. The water comes down that downspout into it. Do you see the blue arrow? That's the pipe end. That's where the water comes out. And that's a sidewalk right there. So 2 weeks ago, there was 4 inches of ice on that sucker. And you know, the people are out there with a crowbar trying to chip that ice away, and that's no fun. I at some point they're going to ask me how I would solve that problem. And I'll tell them, oh, all you need to do is take out that hedge, put in a rain garden. You can put the hedge back. Like it could be a rain garden hedge. And just by creating a little divot in the soil there where the water can soak in and the plants can soak it up, it would solve their problem 80% of the time. I mean, maybe once or twice a year, they'd still have to chip it, but not every week like they do now. Because, you know, it's also not good to have ice on your sidewalk. People could slip and fall, and that's not nice. But this is just me with Photoshop. No one was injured in the construction of that photo. Another reason that this is another resident of Ann Arbor who put in a rain garden, and what they were trying to solve, like they actually had already trenched in their downspouts and the water came out and went out onto the sidewalk again. This is another sidewalk issue. But it just annoyed them that it was wet. They were really fastidious. And by putting in a rain garden, they captured that water and soaked it into the ground. So this is not even a big garden. It's tiny. And it ended up being 2 rain gardens on either side of their house. So it created symmetrical bookends, which made them happy. Also, as a resident of Ann Arbor, you get a credit on your water bill if you build a rain garden. The stormwater charge is not very much. It's like $15. And the credit you get is about $4, which will, you know, you could have a toast with your spouse for about that much every quarter. That's not bad. And by building a rain garden, you solve this problem, which is downstream. I think that our sort of like credit card as a community is, what is the water like downstream of us? What are we doing? How are we behaving? And so let's look at the Huron downstream of us. And so there's Lake Erie below us. And you will know that there's a lot of red color. Now, this is a little bit like worse than it actually is because, or not worse, but there's only, Lake Erie is a lot more shallow than say Lake Superior. So Lake Superior is always going to be kind of colder and cleaner. Lake Erie is what it is. But that said, the more we get phosphorus that Jason was talking about, all that phosphorus out of our streams and lakes, the more people in Toledo can drink their drinking water and they don't get toxic algal blooms in Lake Erie. So what we do makes a big difference to the people downstream. Because like Jason said, non-point source pollution is the biggest stressor on our lakes and rivers today. And why? Well, I took this photo a while ago, but we can see it out the window right now. There is crud on our streets and it's all going to get washed down into the river. This is another photo. Oh, actually the last one was taken by Harry Sheehan, my boss. This one I took at the corner of Main Street and Miller. This is the kind of stuff that and the snow's about to melt right now. Once it melts, it looks like this and it's so gross. And then it rains and it's all gone. So where does it go? It goes all into the river. Here's another photo. This is what I do, is I take photos of disgusting things on the ground that are going to get washed into the river. This was in a parking lot. I was sitting there and I noticed what was in the gutter. And this is the sort of thing that gets washed into the water, and that's not nice. All sorts of other stuff does too. And these are all good behaviors that if we change them, then the water would be cleaner. If only my dog would pick up after herself, that would be great. But people in Ann Arbor totally building rain gardens, more than 500 just in Ann Arbor. That's a lot. We're starting to really, like, people who are listening right now, you've probably seen a little sign that says, this is a rain garden. And the reason why we have signs is if they don't look like anything other than a garden. They just look like a garden. Just looks like a totally normal garden, depending on the talent of the gardener. And if the gardener is really good, it's a really beautiful garden. You know, if you're more interested and you have questions about how to build a garden, Of course, you can come to our website. We have tons of information and the Master Rain Gardener class, but there's also a Facebook group that I started that's local people called Master Rain Gardeners. So you join the Facebook group and you can see like what your neighbors are, what people in Ann Arbor are doing, how they're building their gardens. People post their plans for how they're going to build their rain garden. And then here, like Bridget is posting, these were sequential how she did it. So you can really see how people build their rain gardens step by step. Because it's nice to see what other people have done so you can kind of figure out if it's right for you. Here's Betsy Lindsay on 7th Street. She built her little rain garden there. She's a master gardener, so she really knows what she's doing. She built this little rain garden for to take the water from her garage. And the next spring, it filled up with water. And she totally like emailed me this picture and was like, there's water in my rain garden. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. It's going to be fine. And it is. This was that same spring, just a few weeks later, once spring, sprung and all the plants grew up. Those plants, by picking the right plants, and we have a list that you can follow by picking from that list, these plants love the situation of a rain garden. They are fine with being flooded like that. So in some ways it's easier because the garden waters itself, which is handy for lazy gardeners like me. So by building a rain garden, you also join the Master Rain Gardener Hall of Fame. The Master Rain Gardener class teaches you all the steps to build a rain garden. So there's the Master Rain Gardener certification that you can get by taking the class and then building your rain garden. There's also design assistance, which normally we would come out to your house and we'd stand around in your yard and chit chat about how to build your rain garden. But these days we do it, you send me a bunch of photos and we talk on the phone and I talk through all your options and figure out, usually it's kind of figuring out like, is this going to solve your problem? And where should we put this rain garden? There's usually a few options and we can just go through them and figure out which one is right for you. So it kind of takes you through like class 1 and 2 of the Master Rain Gardener class if you want to jump ahead. And if you feel like you need a little specific help on your particular yard, which that's fine. Some yards are definitely more challenging than others. Now, right now, the Master Rain Gardener class is free. It is online on demand. You can take it whenever you want because our in-person training is on hold for the time being. But there's lots of ways to volunteer as well, which I don't know if you got the most recent, I just got this today, the most recent version of the Ann Arbor Observer. There is all of our rain garden volunteer opportunities in there in an ad that we put in the Observer. So feel free to look at that if you're looking for particular ways that you might want to volunteer in a garden, because it's really nice actually to be volunteering in a garden these days. You can be a steward where you're assigned a garden, and often Katie Wojcicek, my colleague who organizes the volunteers, she will often pair people up so that you can either be there at the same time or not. But if you are, it's super easy to garden distance. This is way before COVID, so this is not that. But there's lots of space. You can be weeding way on one end and they're weeding way on the other, and it works fine. And it's nice to sort of meet someone new these days. It's been a while since I met someone new. So these are some of our public rain gardens. There's some on Miller, there's some on Madison, and volunteers keep them looking great. Other cool things that people are doing with rain gardens is putting them on tour. This is not really, probably this year probably wouldn't happen, but if you have a beautiful rain garden, some of them have been featured on the Women's National Farm and Garden Tour, which you might have gone on, which is like the most beautiful gardens that are on tour. They're very picky actually about gardens that they pick. So a couple of the gardens that have appeared there are Graciela Rubaclava's garden, and you can just see that she has an artistic eye with that curve of the bed, really pretty. And David Baker, who has a huge, extensive garden that he built with a lot of art. You can see there's like a brass gate there and just, gorgeous things that people do. And it's nice to share. It's nice that they're sharing with other people. They're doing something good for the environment, but then sharing it with their neighbors. Or Sometimes people decide to build a rain garden in a public place instead of in their own yard. For instance, these are two master rain gardeners who built, if you want to go visit it, it's really pretty. At the Saline Public Library on the north side, the north entrance, there's a rain garden that is in the summertime, last summer, it looked amazing. It's just really, really pretty. And it's maintained by volunteers there. So building one at a school, like there's several schools that have rain gardens, or maintaining one at a school is a great something to do. Or if you have an opportunity after you get trained as a master rain gardener, not only you have a lot of expertise about rain gardens, you could give this talk. And also just by telling the story of building your own rain garden, you can inspire other people. Oh, Stefan Sumko built this rain garden at Eberwhite. And then someone, Bridget Lindsay, who I previously showed her post in the Master Rain Gardener class, wrote a sustainability grant actually to build another rain garden at Eberwhite. So it's fun. Like, I try to make it fun. I make the class fun. Gardening is very enjoyable. Here is a mom gardening with her kids. This is actually at the rain garden at Eberwhite. It's fun, but it's also meaningful. And Jason touched on how serious the problem is that we're addressing here, but your contribution is weighty, even if you're having a good time. This is a photograph of the Grand River going into Lake Michigan, actually. Like, let's take a look at this. Like, this is the problem we're solving. So that's all I have. Yeah. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to email me at Washtenaw County. If you Google Rain Gardens Washtenaw County, you get my program and take the class. If you'd like a visit, we can do a personal visit if you live in Washtenaw County, and check out the Ann Arbor Observer for ways that you can volunteer.
That is so excellent. Thank you, Susan. I've seen you do this presentation or something similar a few times, and every time I think I need to call Susan because I have some flooding happening in my front yard every time it rains.
You should call.
I should call. I don't know what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, we have like a super fancy widget where you can make an appointment.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to use it.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, like we talk to all sorts of people all over the county. So if you're solving a drainage problem, like you're getting water in your basement or water sitting around in an area that's annoying you, we specialize in that.
Fascinating. What a wonderful resource. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing.
Sure. My pleasure.
Good. And I'm going to call you.
You should. Everyone here should. Give us a call. We are staffed to do it. And we love it when people build rain gardens. I'm putting together, we have a map, but I'm putting it together so that you'll be able to submit your own rain garden when you build it. And so if you want to, you can put a picture on there. So we'll be able to like look at the map and like check out photos of rain gardens all over the county. Like, this is the sort of geeky stuff Anyway, thanks so much for inviting me, Zach.
Thank you for joining. That's fantastic. So we've had some people come in and out. There are a couple of new people here. I just want to thank you for joining us. We're talking tonight about the interactions between the natural world in the urban setting. And so we have a wonderful set of panelists here tonight to talk about various elements of that. So, and yes, there was a question about recording for tonight. All of the forums are being recorded and they will all be posted on the city website. You can find them at a2gov.org/sustainability. They will also be showing on CTN, TBD on the time and date. But thank you all again for joining. That was wonderful, Susan. Thank you so much. And up next, we have Sean Reynolds, who is the city's Urban Trees Initiative Coordinator with the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. He is currently developing the 10,000 Trees Initiative, which is a program to get trees planted on private property in the city. He has prior urban forestry experience through Casey Trees, a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Sean received his master's degree in forestry from Auburn University in August of 2020. Originally from Maryland, he moved to Ann Arbor in December 2020 and is excited to explore the natural beauty of Michigan and to share his passion for trees with the Ann Arbor community. And we are so delighted to have Sean joining us in the Office of Sustainability. And so, Sean, take it away. Tell us about 10,000 trees.
Great, thanks, Zach. I will go ahead and share my screen here. Cool, awesome. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit tonight about the 10,000 Trees Initiative and how you can get involved in it. But I also want to spend a little bit of time first talking about the trees themselves, because they are the real heroes of the story. So just start off by talking about the value of urban trees. Obviously trees, most of the time, if you think about trees, you're thinking of a forest, a woodland, but we also have trees in our cities, and they can provide a lot of benefits to us. And in some cases, they do different things than the ones in the forest, but they are really helpful here in our cities. So, start off by talking a little bit about some of the ecosystem services that trees provide for us. These are things that trees do that help the ecosystem, the natural world, whether that is a city or a forest or a wetland or what have you. And so there are a lot of these, I like to call trees jacks of all trades. They do a lot of great things, but there are a few that are particularly important, especially in an urban environment. And so those are the ones I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. So the first of those is reducing erosion, runoff, and flooding. So we've already talked about this tonight with both of the previous presentations, but trees are really helpful for this. So some of the ways that they can help, tree roots can actually, they're always actively growing. And so they help to physically loosen up the soil. And that allows for more water to move into the soil and at a faster rate. So then when you have heavy rains come in through a storm, instead of pooling on the surface and then running off onto the streets and into bodies of water, and eroding the soil, the water is actually able to go down into the soil and be held there. The branches, leaves, and trunks of trees are also helpful in this regard because they actually absorb some of the energy of that falling rain. So instead of having a raindrop impact the soil with all the force that it got from that long fall from the clouds through gravity, it hits the tree first. And so then when it drips onto the ground, it has a lot less force. So then there's a lot less movement of the soil, so there's less erosion happening. Roots from trees and other plants, as we just saw in the last presentation, can also help to stabilize the soil, hold it in place, so then there's less erosion from there. And then also, as was mentioned with the rain gardens, trees also take up water from the soil, and then they release that into the atmosphere through evapotranspiration. So by removing the water that's in the soil, you allow for more water to enter the soil so that, again, you have less of that runoff and flooding. So why is this important, especially in the city? Well, obviously, if you are reducing erosion and you're reducing flooding, then you're reducing the amount of damage that happens to buildings and infrastructure. You are also, by reducing erosion and runoff of chemicals and pollutants, you're helping to keep our rivers, like the Huron River, lakes like Lake Erie, and other bodies of water, so even just ponds and things like that. We're helping to keep them clean and healthy for the aquatic creatures that live in them, and also for ourselves if there are sources of drinking water like the Huron River is for us here in Ann Arbor. And then also reducing runoff can help to improve the efficiency of our sewer and stormwater systems. Some cities have combined sewer and stormwater systems, some have separate ones. But either way, when you have stormwater that runs off into the streets, it will go into a system of some sort. And the more water entering the system, the more likely it is to get backed up and result in flooding. And so trees can help to prevent that from happening. So another ecosystem service that we get from trees is through their improvement of air quality. So there was a study done in 2006 that looked at several US cities across the United States. And they found that trees remove an average of 10.8 grams of air pollutants per square meter of canopy cover. They also saw that the short-term average percent improvements in air quality due to tree canopy could reach as much as 16% for some pollutants, including ozone and sulfur dioxide. So trees really do a great job of removing some of these pollutants from the atmosphere and the air that we are breathing. Carbon dioxide is among those things that are taken up by trees. Quick high school biology lesson here. Plants, when they do photosynthesis, they need two main things in addition to sunlight, but they need two main chemicals, those being water and carbon in some form. And carbon dioxide is the way that they get most of their carbon. So they absorb a lot of carbon dioxide, they store it in their tissues, so they are a carbon sink. So this is important because by removing that carbon dioxide and being a carbon sink, they help us to achieve carbon neutrality goals, like our A20 plan here in Ann Arbor. And then by removing other pollutants, they can help improve human health, they can improve ecosystem health, and they can also increase visibility. So they can help to reduce smog levels, they can help to make skies clearer for stargazing, things of that nature. So now moving to kind of the benefits that trees have directly for humans, not a little bit less for the ecosystem, but directly for us here in the city. Trees really help with energy savings in many cases. So they do this by reducing how much energy we have to use for cooling our houses in the warmer months and for heating our houses in the colder months. So if you plant a large deciduous shade tree, so this is something like an oak, for example. If you plant that on generally the southern and western sides of buildings is the best place to plant these for energy savings, because here in the Northern Hemisphere, those are the sides of our buildings that are going to be getting the most sunlight during the day. So if you have a large shade tree on the southern or western side of a building during summer months, then it is shading your building. So then you're going to have to use less energy to help cool that building because it's already getting shaded by the tree. And then because these are deciduous trees, so they lose their leaves in the winter, the sunlight is still able to reach the building in those winter months and help to warm the building. So you're not seeing any impacts during the winter that would actually make you have to use more energy. And then trees, especially evergreen trees, so those are our pine trees and things of that nature. Those are particularly good at being windbreaks. So if you plant those on generally the northern side of a building is the best place to plant them for this. That's where most of the wind comes from here. Then you can help to reduce the need for heating your home in the winter months because when there is less air movement, the air is warmer. And so by providing that windbreak, we help to reduce the need for heating. But one caveat to this, please be sure to consider potential conflicts with solar panels. Like I mentioned, southern parts of buildings generally get the most sun. So those are also the places where you're most likely to want to put solar panels if you want to get that renewable energy. So if you have solar panels or you're considering getting a solar panels, just consider that before you put in a big shade tree. You have to look at the pros and cons. But this is important, obviously. If we are reducing the amount of energy that we're using, then that is going to reduce the amount of money that we are spending on our energy bills. So this can help to save residents money. And by reducing the amount of energy that we use, we also help to achieve our carbon neutrality goals again, because we are using less electricity that is created through the consumption of things like that. And then one other thing, trees are just pretty, you know, I have art of trees behind me. I like trees. Most people like trees. They're green. They look good. This picture speaks for itself. This is important because if you have a healthy urban tree canopy, you have all of that, those beautiful trees, that nice green space, that can help to improve the mental health of people living in the city. It can help to increase tourism, improve the city's image. And trees also can help to support wildlife, you know, make the city a little bit more interesting in that regard, you know, more birds, small mammals, things of that sort. And they can help to connect populations that have been fragmented by urban development. So if you have a park over here and a park over here, but nothing but concrete and asphalt in between, then it's really hard for those birds and small mammals and things to move between those areas. And so they're kind of stuck in that park. But if you have this nice continuous urban tree canopy for street trees or trees on private property or other smaller parks, then that allows for movement of the wildlife in between. And then monetary benefits. So I already touched on this a little with that the energy reductions in energy usage, but those benefits that they provide in mitigating stormwater runoff, that actually translates to money that is saved as well. The improvements in air quality translates to money. And then also that beautification, you know, just the fact that trees look nice, translates to money and increased property value. So this is a really cool website, the National Tree Benefits Calculator. All you need to do is plug in the species of your tree and its diameter, and it will give you an estimate of the benefits that you're seeing from that tree each year. So I plugged in an 8-inch diameter northern red oak, so a medium-sized oak, planted on a single-family residential lot, and you can see that we have about $93 per year. So almost $100 per year in savings from that tree. So that is, those are just some of the ways that trees are really helpful for us and valuable, and why we should work to preserve and enhance our tree canopy in cities down here in Ann Arbor. So what are we doing towards that here? Well, we have our A20 plan. As Zach mentioned at the beginning of the night, we have several different strategies in that, including strategy number 6, which is to enhance the resilience of our people and our place. So that is where the 10,000 Trees Initiative comes in. So this is a screenshot of one of the action items that is under that strategy 6. And that action item is to preserve and enhance the local tree canopy. I want to bring your attention to a few things on this page. So the first is, again, this is the resilience strategy. So as I just talked about, all those benefits that we're seeing from trees primarily are helping us with our resilience. They also help with carbon neutrality in some ways, but resilience is kind of the name of the game when you're planting trees in a city. I do also want to point out the equity impacts box down here. So throughout the entire A20 plan and also with this action here, we want to be as equitable and as just as possible in our actions. And so what that means for this strategy is equitable enhancement of tree canopy. So we want to make sure that we are putting trees into neighborhoods that have lower tree canopy cover. Those are the neighborhoods that need trees the most in terms of increasing our tree canopy and enhancing our tree canopy. But those neighborhoods also are in need of some of the benefits that trees provide. So the neighborhoods that have lower tree canopy cover also tend to be neighborhoods with lower income levels and neighborhoods that have higher rates of things like mental illness, lung disease, things of that nature. As we just learned, trees can help with all of that. So we really want to try and focus on some of these priority neighborhoods for enhancing our tree campaign. And then lastly, just draw your attention down here to one of the indicators of success for this action item is the planting 10,000 new trees on private property in the city by the year 2030. So that is where the 10,000 Trees initiative had its genesis. So the Office of Sustainability and Innovations put together this 10,000 Trees initiative. We are currently developing it and hoping to launch it soon. So I want to run through some of the programs that we're hoping to offer through the initiative. So the first of these is our Branch Out Group Buy program. So this program is for anyone in the city who owns private property, and also for folks that are outside of the city have the opportunity to participate as well. You would be paying for the trees, but it would be at discounted prices, hopefully larger discounts, depending on how many, the more people that are participating, larger discounts. Before you commit to getting trees, there will be informational meeting so that you can learn from the nursery about what kinds of trees you can get and what planting it will require. You can figure out what kinds of trees you should get and where you put them. We want to make sure that we're putting the right tree in the right place. And you can learn about the commitment that getting a tree will require in terms of caring for that tree into the future. Then after, if you decide to participate in the group buy, then you'll work with the nursery to figure out exactly what trees you're going to get. And then that nursery will deliver the trees and plant them for you. So this is kind of the hands-off way of getting trees through the 10,000 Trees initiative. So you can either host an event, so that would just require a commitment to getting trees from a nursery, and then you would reach out to your social network, your neighbors, and invite them to that informational meeting. Or you, if you're not interested in hosting an event, you can also find existing ones. Once we launch this program, those will be listed on our newsletter and events page of the OSI website. So then our second program that we're looking at offering is our free tree giveaway program. So this would again be for all private property owners would be able to get trees to this program. For this program, we would really try to target those priority neighborhoods that I mentioned for equity and really trying to get tree canopy into the places where it's needed most. The city would pay for the trees in this instance. And then you would be able to select 1 or 2 trees from the ones that we have available, which is going to depend on the nursery providing the trees and what they have available. And then you'd be able to select based on your yard, the space that you have, what kind of tree you would like to put in. After you select your trees, you just have to show up at the event. These will be drive-through events held at community partner spaces. So like museums, houses of worship, schools, anything, community centers, anything of that nature that has the space. We are looking for partners in that regard. But you just show up in your car and we will get your trees that you selected, and you'll be able to put them in your car and take them home and plant them. We will also offer delivery for those who do not have access to a vehicle. And then you get to plant your own tree. So this is a really great option, especially for families to get kids involved in putting the tree in the ground. These will be, you're driving home with them in your car and handling them yourself, so they'll be pretty small trees, pretty easily handled. We will also be providing tree planting and care information, little cards at these events. And then a little bit further down the road, we hope to introduce Back to Our Roots community tree planting program. So this will be for community organizations, co-ops, apartment complexes, houses of worship, community centers, nonprofits, anyone that has private property in the city that has room for about 10 to 15 trees to go in. So a little bit less targeted at private property like residential owners and more at these kind of people with larger spaces. Again, targeted to our priority neighborhoods. You would need to have room for 10 to 15 trees and commit to a tree care plan after the trees go into the ground. We would work with you on developing that. And then the city would pay for the trees, provide all the planting instruction and tools necessary. And then there would be a big volunteer event where we would get the trees in the ground. And we would provide some volunteers and then ask that the organization getting the trees would provide a few as well. So I've kind of alluded to this a little already, but we don't want to just plant 10,000 trees. We also want to maintain them and care for them and make sure that they survive and actually provide us with the benefits that we need from them. So we are looking at a few different ways to help make sure that folks who get trees through our initiative have everything they could need to help take care of these trees. So one thing that we're working on is we are currently developing a web application with some students at the University of Michigan. And that application will allow you to, once you get a tree through the 10,000 Trees initiative, you'll be able to put it into this app. And then whenever you log in, you can go to that tree and there will be species specific information about that tree in the app for you. So this will be just kind of general information about the tree, you know, fun facts and things like that, but then also information on how to plant that particular species and how to care for it. So certain trees have certain things that you need to keep an eye on when you're taking care of them. You'll also have the option to, through that app, sign up for weekly watering alerts during the summer months. And those will be based on real-time weather data. So we'll be able to send out a notification to everyone saying, hey, it rained a lot last week, or it's supposed to rain a lot this week. So you don't need to worry about watering your trees this week. Or it could be, you know, it's been really dry lately and we aren't seeing any signs of rain in the near future. So please make sure you water your trees. You'll also be able to sign up for other tree care reminders, so like pruning, mulching, things of that nature, and easily look up other events if you want to get more trees or if you want to learn about trees. Then in addition to that app, we're also looking at providing other tree care information and support. So as I mentioned, for the branch out, the group buy events, we will have those informational meetings before you commit to participating, where the nurseries and some tree care experts will be there to help you explain the commitment for caring for trees and what it'll take and everything. We will also have those species-specific tree care and planting cards available at our free tree events. We can also hand those out to folks who get trees through our other programs as well. And those will have information on caring for the trees, specific again to the species that you got. We'll work on developing tree care plans with folks who get trees through the Back to Our Roots community tree planting program. And then we're also looking into putting together a series of workshops that we will offer on a wide variety of things, anything tree related. So some examples are tree identification, tree care, tree planting. So if you're interested in learning anything in the world of trees, we're hoping to eventually offer a workshop on that topic so that you can learn about trees and really get to know them and be better able to take care of the ones that you have on your property. So how can you get involved? If you're interested in hosting one of those branch out group buy events, or if you're an organization that's interested in hosting a free tree giveaway event in your parking lot or other space that you have, or if you would like to apply to get trees through a community tree planting event, if you'd like to volunteer at a tree planting event, or volunteer to help distribute trees at a tree giveaway, or if you just want more information in general on the 10,000 Trees Initiative, then please feel free to email me. If you're interested in joining an existing branch out event, if you want to get trees through a free tree giveaway, or if you want to learn about trees in any capacity, then obviously you're welcome to email me about those as well. But we will also, like I mentioned earlier, all of the events, once we get some lined up, will be listed on our newsletter and events page of the OSI website. So you'll be able to go there to find all these events if you're interested in participating in them. So with that, thank you for being here tonight. There's my email again, that's sreynolds@a2gov.org if you have any questions. And I will also be happy if there's any pressing questions right now to answer those, Zach. And if not, then like Zach mentioned, there'll be time at the end of tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Fascinating. There were a couple of questions that did come in. Maybe we'll do one now and one at the end. This one is, has Ann Arbor's tree program considered small trees and native shrubs as alternatives where full-size trees are not appropriate?
Yes. So that is a great question. A lot of the time you cannot put in a large tree, as mentioned. So if there's power lines, or if you're worried about blocking your solar panels, anything of that nature. And so then we will be offering smaller trees and potentially shrubs. We have to work on figuring that out. But there will definitely be some smaller trees available, things like dogwoods, arborvitae, small cherries, things of that nature. So there will definitely be smaller trees available because every tree provides benefits. Smaller ones maybe less so than the really big ones, but you can still get some benefits from smaller trees, and we really want to get trees to people who want them, regardless of what size it is. So yes, there will be definitely an option for smaller trees.
Excellent. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing about the 10,000 trees. I'm really excited to see this take off and as we get it launched moving into the season. Fantastic. Well, let's move on. We've got one more. Thanks for everyone for sticking with us. We have Melissa Schacht is up next. You've made it now into the darkness of the evening. I forgot that to mention at the beginning that we were starting in the daylight, which we didn't last time. So, hey, the days are getting longer. This is good.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, welcome, Melissa. Melissa coordinates the Parks and Rec Department's Adopt a Park program, which is part of the Give 365 volunteer program. She's been with Adopt a Park since 2016 and has helped grow the program to work with more volunteers and to work on a large variety of park projects. Melissa is originally from Southeast Michigan and is a Grand Valley State University alumna. She's passionate about getting people to spend more time in our green spaces, encouraging others to adapt more sustainable habits, and is always trying to learn more about our local flora and fauna. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
I'll share my screen. All right, can you see it?
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, so yep, I'm Melissa and I'm the Adopt a Park coordinator with Parks and Rec in Ann Arbor. If you're not familiar with the program, Adopt a Park facilitates long-term volunteer commitments within the city. And to provide some context, part of Parks and Rec, and then it's housed within the Give 365 volunteer program. And I'm going to spend a few minutes just backtracking and sharing some facts about Parks and Rec and Give 365 to provide some context, and they talk about Adopt a Park and how people can get involved in what projects we work on. So if you're not familiar with how many parks the city has, there are 161 city parks, and there are 77 playgrounds in those parks. So that's a lot of park space. Every resident lives within a quarter mile of a city park, which is really awesome. And as you could imagine, that's a lot of maintenance and a lot of work that needs to be put into those parks, and volunteers are a huge part of that for us and for other programs. As a lot of us know, the park system has a lot of facilities and amenities, like our 2 canoe liveries, the pools, senior center, a lot of opportunities like that to get out and interact with your community. Of course, right now, a lot of those programs and those facilities have had to adapt. So if anyone's looking to get out to one of them, make sure you check out the city's website and see what's going on at those places. The city has, in a typical year, 500 seasonal and part-time staff and 35 full-time staff and 14 facilities. Within Parks and Rec, there are 500 seasonal and 35 full-time staff in Parks and Rec. I may have said just the city. And also in Parks and Rec, there's a natural area preservation. And then, as we know now, Give 365 and Adopt a Park. I want to mention natural area preservation just quickly. They work to protect and preserve natural areas in our parks, and they foster environmental ethic among our residents. They do a lot of different things in our natural areas. They do a lot of stewardship projects with both staff and volunteers. They do a lot of inventorying and monitoring of our plant and animal populations, like reptiles, amphibians, birds, probably a lot more than that. And they also work with a lot of volunteers too. So volunteer groups, and they also have dedicated park stewards. So it's really comparable to park adopters. The park stewards are committed to working in the natural areas in the park. So as you could imagine, there's a ton of overlap and collaboration, which is really great. And if now or towards the end of the presentation, if anyone is of a park that they would like to make a volunteer commitment to, or have a project in mind for, and it's in a natural area, be sure to reach out to NAP, and you can check out their website there. And then Give 365 is a really great volunteer program. We do a ton of different things in the city, but primarily focusing on improving park spaces and creating meaningful volunteer opportunities for residents and visitors. Most of these volunteer opportunities are like one time, so a group or an individual can volunteer once, or they can come back to a bunch of our volunteer opportunities and work at different parks and on different projects. Give was founded in 2011 and is funded by a Parks Maintenance and Capital Improvements millage. I should mention that Give 365 works in about 110 of the city parks, and these are parks that we call mode areas. So they're parks that have their mode, and they have playgrounds, facilities, gardens, things like that. And then those extra parks would be pretty much just natural areas. And Adopt a Park has been within Give 365 since 2015, and before that it was actually housed within the National Area Preservation. So that's something good to know. In Give 365, we work on a lot of park maintenance and beautification projects, such as spreading wood chips on playgrounds, removing litter, painting, stuff like that. So a lot of cool opportunities that we have. And usually Give 365 would be involved in community events. So they're really fun, like family oriented and community oriented events for which we recruit volunteers to help facilitate it. But obviously those have been put to the side recently, but we're excited to get back to them. And Adopt a Park. So Adopt a Park, as I said, facilitates long-term volunteer opportunities. And there are 93 parks that we considered adoptable. So those are in those mode areas, and they have something for a volunteer or an adopter group to work on. So playgrounds, gardens, a facility, stuff like that. And the amount of parks that we have adopted really fluctuates with just availability in the year and whatever's going on in the world. But typically we have between 40 and 50 adopted parks, so plenty more out there to be adopted. And we partner with a really wide variety of volunteers. We partner with individuals, park neighbors and groups, businesses. So it's kind of hard to describe like who we work with and what expectations we have, because we're so Adopt a Park can work with a lot of different interests and volunteer types. But I will try to categorize them. But the one expectation we have is that adopters work with us for at least 1 year. But we have a lot of adopters that have been around for a long time, for longer than I've been working with the city, which is a really cool relationship to have with some of our residents. And Adopt a Park is an avenue for residents to propose special projects, and I will mention that towards the end. And then there's me. So as I mentioned, we partner with individual adopters a lot. A lot of these adopters are working independently and on projects on their own time at their own availability. And they'll typically work at a park that they're interested in. They might live next to it, or a park that they spend a lot of time in or whatnot. And the projects that they work on are, again, usually what they're interested in, but we can provide a lot of guidance and a lot of different options for what individuals can work on. Typical projects in the park would be removing litter, weeding the playground, caring for gardens, and a role that is also super valuable is reporting any issues or concerns at a park. So maybe something that needs to be fixed or needs to be seen to by some staff in the city or Parks and Rec, and to just be the eyes and ears of a park. So keeping an eye on it. For individual adopters and really all of our adopters, there's a lot of support and resources that are available, including like expertise and guidance from staff. So that might be helping to select plants for a garden. We can provide extra volunteers to help with an Adopt a Park project, or maybe at an amenity at a park that the adopter is not focusing on. We can bring in a separate volunteer group to take care of that. We can have staff, like our own staff or park ops, again, work on any other needs in the park, and then lots of materials and supplies such as like wood chips, mulch, and plants, and we can also lend out tools. A lot of help to be had there. A really common project for individuals to work on is maintaining gardens and landscaping at our parks, and those are just some examples of gardens that are out there. They're not all focused on native plants, but we are kind of heading in that direction more, especially for larger gardens. There's certainly some small ones that have just a flat of annuals and call it done, but yeah, there's a wide variety, and some of them are really, really beautiful. A lot of the city parks are nestled within neighborhoods, and we partner with a lot of neighborhood groups and associations to help maintain and improve those parks that are tucked in there. Ann Arbor has like over 100 registered neighborhood associations, and those are really great people to partner with because they already have like communication strategies in place, and they have a person appointed as a contact. So we partner with some of those association groups, and yeah, they advocate for improvements, report any concerns that are at the park. They help come up with creative ideas to solve those solutions or solve those problems, and help us keep an eye on the park. And yeah, again, those groups would be appointing a contact for me and some to organize volunteer activities. And a lot of these neighborhood groups are, well, most of them hosting volunteer work days to get the neighbors out once or maybe a few times a year. Good, and it's a good way to get to know people. So next, I'm going to show quite a few examples of some adopters that we have and highlight them and yeah, share those. So Graydon Park is, I'll go back. Graydon Park is located off of Stadium and State. It was actually called Rose White Park up until last fall, and now it is Graydon Park. And that is adopted by the Lower Burns Park Neighborhood Association. And they're a really awesome group of neighbors that are dedicated to partnering with us to improve and enhance the park and again, report those concerns and act as a contact for the neighborhood, that they're really knowledgeable about what's going on in the park and how it's being used, and helping to guide priorities there. And at Graydon Park, they tend to gardens, perform different maintenance and cleanup activities at the park, and they have a really great neighborhood work day there once or twice a year where people come out and work on the garden and mulch trees, spread wood chips on the playground, stuff like that. Glacier Highlands Park is another park that has an active neighborhood group. This is the Glacier Highlands Neighborhood Association. And similarly, they advocate for improvements, work on different projects, and they have a neighborhood work day each spring. And they also typically would have a Memorial Day parade every year, but of course they didn't do that last year. And Worcester Park is a really beautiful park that has an active group of neighbors as well. They partner with a lot of different people in the city. They partner with NAP because there's a natural area in Worcester, and they have some other connections. And every year they create a work plan for the projects that they like to work on and see done at Worcester Park, which is a really helpful guide. They help to recruit more volunteers from the neighborhood or maybe separate groups to engage with the park and work on projects, and they help to facilitate those groups, so providing direction and demonstrations and things like that. So a lot of cool things going on at Worcester Park. Another type of adopter that we work with is groups, and those could be businesses, organizations, school groups, super flexible about who we work with. And a lot of these, they really vary, but a lot of them have work days that are scheduled. They're facilitated by me or maybe another staff. We bring everything that we need, all the supplies, and then provide direction. And it's really like a facilitated work day, but they are committed to coming back to the same park maybe once a month or just a couple times a year. And then most of them come back year after year and get to know the park and help us keep it up to a good standard and work on different projects. Some other groups work on more projects that are driven by the group. I'll show some examples to provide some clarity. But so yeah, super flexible. And I'll highlight Gallup Park, which I'm sure we're pretty much all familiar with over there. So at Gallup Park, there's a butterfly garden off of Getty's, and the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor North is the adopter there, and they installed that garden in 1991 and have continued to care for the garden by weeding, spreading wood chips, and they ongoing add native flowers and grasses, including like New England aster, bee balm, butterfly weed, and you can see a lot of different species of butterflies there. And again, they help to partner with staff and volunteer groups to add a little bit more help to maintain the garden. It's a really beautiful one. Also at Gallup, we work with Eastern's National Association of Black Accountants, and they've been volunteering at Gallup since 2018. And this is a group that has more facilitated work days that I meet them out there and work on various things with them, including helping to maintain the gardens there, removing litter, cutting down invasive non-native vegetation, whatever has to be done at the park, they're up for it. And we work with them a few times a year. Southeast Area Park is another group. This is a Mitsubishi office, and they remove litter, weed the playground a lot. There's a lot of playgrounds there, and they help to redo that garden there, which looks really great. So as I mentioned, Adopt a Park is also an avenue for people to propose a special park project. And some of these projects may not fit in with another program or with another department. So Adaptive Arc is a really good first step for that. To if someone has an idea for, or yeah, it could be a variety of different project ideas or a donation or something in a park, they can start with Adaptive Park. We have a special project proposal guide, an application that helps someone organize their ideas, and it has some prompts such as like considering long-term maintenance, what does the idea, how does it improve the park, who does it impact, funding considerations, of course, so stuff like that to help someone organize their idea a little more. And then we take that project proposal and share it with other folks in the city to seek approval and to help bring the project to fruition if it is approved. Sometimes the project or the proposal doesn't stay within Adaptive Park. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is for a different department to deal with, or it might be a bigger project that requires like public input or meetings. But we love hearing like really creative and cool ideas in the park, so we're always up for hearing them. And these are just a couple examples of past ones. There's tennis ball recycling bins at Beer Park, Burns, Veterans Memorial, and West Park, if you all didn't know, where we partnered with Recycle Ann Arbor to collect the balls and then send them out for recycling. There's a lot of garden replanting or installation projects that are proposed. And then we've been working with the Girl Scouts, some Girl Scouts at Cranbrook Park. They built birdhouses and helped us kind of beautify some benches there and have continued to maintain them. And there is a little mural at Hunt Park that was advocated for and painted by a resident in 2019, which is really cool. So the special project proposal guide is on the Adaptive Park website. You can find it there. And then it would be sent to me, and then I would work with the resident or the volunteer. And also through Adaptive Park, you can make a tree donation to a park. It's the way to donate a tree to a park. And I work with the donor to select or a planting location to the species, get approval for the planting to make sure it's somewhere that aligns with like the future goals and plans at the park, and then coordinate that donation process and the expectations and carry out the planting. And Sean made me remember to mention that there are maintenance expectations with this too, primarily watering. If you donate a tree, then watering is part of the expectation. And this information to donate a tree to a park and that application is on the Adaptive Park website too. Just a quick mention, we've of course had to adapt to COVID-19. We require face coverings at any Adaptive Park activities. We're limiting the number of volunteers. Last year we were limiting to 10 typically, or assigning shifts, like for a neighborhood that has a lot of people that want to get involved, we'll split them into shifts. Sanitizing tools, and then following recommended guidelines. And really important is to just make sure that our individuals and group volunteers are comfortable, and working with them to to be comfortable and holding off on any activities if needed. So if anyone is interested in getting involved with being an adapter or proposing a project, you can definitely reach out to me or check out our website there. And there is a page on the website that lists a few parks for which we're actively recruiting volunteers or adapters. It's not an exhaustive list at all. We're love to hear like different ideas or preferences from potential adapters, but that page outlines a few that we're looking for people for. And then again, you can find the special park project donate or guide and the tree donation application on there. Those 3 parks are some examples of where we're looking for adopters. Argo Park mural was painted a few years ago. It gets tagged with graffiti once in a while. We're looking for a group to help address that and repainting it as needed. Huron Highlands Park is a small neighborhood park that has some gardens that would really benefit from an adopter, and Redwoods Park has a really beautiful garden that's a lot of work to maintain that I would love to see some more committed volunteers at. So yeah, so be sure to check out the website and let me know if you have any questions or if you have any ideas of how you want to get involved or a park that you have in mind. And as I mentioned, it's a really flexible program, and love working on new projects and working with new volunteers. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. And if we were in person, I'm sure the crowd would be going wild for all of our panelists tonight with a thunderous applause. I'm going to ask that our panelists all come back online, and while the others are coming back, Melissa, we have a question that came in during your presentation. It's a two-parter. The first, I think you addressed in the last couple slides there, which is how do you connect volunteers with projects? And it sounds like the website is a way to do that. And so if you want to speak to that, go for it. The other question is, do you track the hours of volunteers?
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of ways to connect volunteers with projects. There is a website that lists some that we have projects that are already present that we're looking for help with. But sometimes a volunteer individual or group wants to adopt a park, and they'll reach out to me, and with some a really broad interest or just a general interest in adopting a park. And we talk amongst staff and come up with some good ideas and come up with some options for the volunteer to see what park fits best with their interests. So it can go two ways. Like we can provide as much guidance or as needed. As far as tracking volunteer hours, we do use the program Logistics with Give 365 and Adopt a Park. Adopt a Park hours are a little hard to track because people work independently, like they're not always scheduling something up beforehand. If they're not, then we track like a expected amount of hours, but for like businesses, of course, we track their hours. And yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
There were a couple of questions that came in for Sean specifically. One is, will the initiative allow or promote planting of non-native species of trees?
Yeah, great question. So we will allow for the planting of non-native species as long as they're not considered invasive. Obviously, we want to encourage native species as much as possible, but also we do need to consider resilience and future adaptation. And there are species that are not native to the area, but are very well adapted to urban environments. And so those are species that we will also be encouraging through the program because of their adaptability to the urban environment and to future increases in heat and things of that nature. So we will be allowing certainly non-native species, and we will have a wide variety of species available through all these programs.
Excellent. So I would like to know what sort of partnerships, either public or private, could help you or your organization succeed in your organization's mission. And I think I want to start with Jason, because you've mentioned that you're also now on the board for the Sierra Club. And so there is clearly a connection between Sierra Club and the Huron River Watershed Council. But what other sort of partnerships can really help the Water Council or the Sierra Club succeed?
I mean, the whole idea of public-private partnerships have been bantered around for a couple decades, right? And we're seeing some of those benefits. I mean, Melissa highlighted a suite of them that are, directly participating in corporate philanthropy. In our work, especially in our River Up program, when we're talking about how we get the economies of a local downtown area or municipal connection to the river, that's through the businesses. I mean, the local DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, might be involved in some ways, depending on if they're that adjacent. But in Ann Arbor, the DDA doesn't directly coincide with the river. And so it's those local businesses that are really participatory, and that's really like, it can be, those partnerships can be really grassroots in that way. Is like, is the diner that's like overlooking the river in Flat Rock have something about the river on their, those printed placemats, those like ones where you like see all the different things about all the businesses in the community, like we have our name on that, right? Because they love us, or they love the river. And it can go, and then it can be, oh, right, we go and talk to city council members all the time and work at that level. I think it's, for me, from my perspective, all of these initiatives can't get done unless we're all involved. And by all of us, I mean everybody on the call and whatnot, but also all those partnerships. One of the things that I loved about working at the Natural Areas program at the city of Ann Arbor is one of their sort of ethos is to restore nature. We also must restore the human spirit, and at the same time restore the connection between humanity and nature. And if we don't do those latter two things, we do a disservice to the former. It doesn't actually happen, because the human spirit and our connection with nature is what destroyed nature thus far. And so I think it takes everyone we possibly can get on board. And that's why I like the programs that we're talking about tonight, because they tend to be very, very inclusive in all sorts of different ways. And we get really interesting partnerships between, garden clubs and EMU groups. Like yeah, it's the only answer in my book.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. That about wraps it up for the night. Great response. I think you make some really excellent points.
I have a question for Sean when we have a second.
Say again?
I have a question for Sean.
Go for it.
Just because there's only a handful of us left. Sean, of the 3 different programs that you're promoting currently and soon for tree planting, what size trees are we talking about for those, the installed, pickup, and neighborhood ones? I did a bunch of work on tree stuff with the city, and I'm sort of a tree dork now because I got to hang out with the foresters.
Great question. Yeah, I love tree nerds. I am a tree nerd myself. So yeah, so we are, for the group buy program, we're not really limiting the size because in that instance, the nursery will be delivering and planting the trees for the folks that get the trees. So that's really just dependent on what the nursery has available. So pretty much anything goes there. For the community tree plantings, we're working with volunteers because those will have to be delivered to the site and then handled by volunteer teams of like 2 or 3 people. Those will need to be on the smaller side so that they're manageable in those volunteer groups. And we don't have to have, heavy equipment to lift them and put them in holes and everything. And then for the free tree giveaways, those are going to be really, our little baby seedlings for the most part, because those we're going to have a whole bunch of them at the giveaway event, so we'll need room for them. They're going to be going home in people's cars. Not everyone has a truck that you can put it in the bed. Sometimes it'll be going in the trunk of a little sedan. And then they'll be responsible for planting the trees themselves, and we don't know what kind of manpower they have available to them. So those are going to be our little tiny containerized seedlings in those instances.
Totally appropriate. Thank you.
Before we get too far away from that last question, I know that at this point we're down to slim attendees, but for the people who might be watching the recording, what sort of, I'm thinking if somebody were watching who had wanted to help your organization succeed, what sort of partnerships might you be looking for, might really help your organization? And I just wanted to give the rest of you a chance to answer, if you dare follow Jason's response. I might also expand that to what perhaps could the city of Ann Arbor as an organization specifically do, or the residents specifically.
Are you asking us, any of us?
Any of you? Yeah, who would like to respond?
Will you repeat it again?
Sure. Wondering if what sort of partnerships would really help your project succeed, or what the city of Ann Arbor could do to help your organization succeed. And Melissa, you're part of the city of Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on a lot of collaboration that could be had with different organizations, like different businesses and organizations that would want to adopt a park or volunteer with us. Obviously, they would have a really big impact on the park that they adopt. There's all other ways that we partner with other folks and other organizations. We're always interested and up for hearing about ideas about how we could use our volunteer activities to help achieve other goals. So whether that be promoting pollinator friendly plants or things like that of that nature, incorporate those goals and those values into our volunteer activities. So sometimes we have those types of conversations, which are really helpful and help to kind of move our program forward.
Thanks.
Yeah, from the 10,000 trees side of things, we have a lot of opportunities for partnership. If you have the space to host a tree giveaway event, we welcome that. If you want to get trees on your own property through community tree planting, reach out about that. We also we want to try and get trees into to folks who don't have the money to pay for trees themselves, and so we welcome any monetary donations that anyone is willing to give to help us with that goal. And if you are a nursery or know a nursery and want to provide trees, we will happily partner with you on that in that regard, and just any other partnerships to get the word out about our events, and to help spread the joy of trees. So yeah, if you have any ideas, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to.
John, I was just thinking about follow-up questions to this exact one for both you and Susan. Susan's coworker Katie has had great success installing rain gardens on public school property. Are you looking at public school property installations also?
This year?
I was wondering if the 10,000 tree initiative could piggyback on Katie's relationships with the schools.
I see what you're saying. Actually, when you were talking, Sean, that was my first thought. I was like, oh, at my kid's elementary school, I bet we could get some people. Because when I walk around there, I'm always thinking, gosh, it would be nice if there were a tree shading this playground. That was just from, as a citizen, I was thinking that. But yeah, those sorts of partnerships for people who are involved in elementary schools or businesses to partner up with the city on a tree planting initiative, that's a great way to do it, especially if the costs are kept low. And also what a great team building exercise for an office. And it's just a one-time thing. And then people water the tree afterwards, but that's not really a huge commitment. Yeah, it seems like a really good thing. And our programs with the schools, these days we're doing more like, we just recorded a lesson on video for the students to see. But in future years, we'll of course be out in the schools teaching and doing projects with kids and things like that. And planting trees is a wonderful, wonderful project for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've been in contact with a couple of people with Ann Arbor Public Schools, and we are primarily at the moment we're focusing on putting trees in on private property. So we're not planning on doing any tree plantings on public school property at the moment. But I've talked to folks about getting some student groups in to volunteer at those community tree planting events that we're going to be holding, potentially volunteer student groups for tree care and going around and taking care of trees and watering trees and things of that nature. So yeah, we definitely want to partner with schools as much as possible and get the kids involved and interested in trees. So.
Hey, Sean, is there a way, like if you're going for 10,000 trees, is there a way for people to report trees that they're planting, not necessarily through your program? We have a plant sale that's this spring that we partner with the Washtenaw County Conservation District, and lots of trees are going to be sold and people are going to plant them. Is there a way for people to just report, like, I planted a tree and have it get counted in that 10,000 trees?
Yeah, great question. So we obviously we are very happy whenever trees get planted, and we are more than happy to keep track of how many trees have been planted overall. For our goal of reaching 10,000 trees, we really want them to be new trees that wouldn't have been planted otherwise. And so that's really kind of the focus that we have for that 10,000 tree number. But obviously we are really excited about the fact that everyone is really interested in getting trees. And so, yeah, if anyone, if you have any interest in letting us know when you plant a tree, please feel free to. We will be more than happy to, count that as a victory.
You'll be hearing a lot about trees this upcoming year, actually, through, we're promoting trees. And of course, you can plant a tree in a rain garden. It's a great place to plant a tree.
Yes, yes, there are some trees that are very good. Bald cypress, river birch, those are willows. Those are all very good at taking up water. So
you are a tree nerd. Oh my goodness.
To close the nerddom, I'm a park steward at Argo Park, which is where Melissa was presenting about the graffiti. And one of the other park stewards was asking, what kind of key species can we plant in these invasive overrun, what turns out to be wooded wetlands? And so we're doing a bunch of research and like, oh, we got to plant a bunch of red ocean dogwood and a bunch of white oak, and it's like, oh, that's all dorkdom coming into one.
I will really quick, if it's okay, Zach, bring up that this spring we are expecting to see the emergence of a brood of 17-year cicadas. They are expected to be pretty big presence of them here in Ann Arbor. Apparently the Cherry Hill Preserve, I think it's called, nearby has a really big population of them. And so these cicadas, the females, when they lay their eggs, they dig little like furrows into small diameter branches of hardwood trees, and then lay their eggs in there, and that typically kills the branch. which is really beneficial in many ways for larger trees. It's kind of like a natural pruning of some of the smaller branches. But for small, recently planted trees, it could be really detrimental to the tree's health. So the city is not planning on planting in public spaces this spring. And with the 10,000 Trees Initiative, we are looking at our options. They are primarily hardwood trees that are affected by the cicadas. And so we are looking at potentially distributing some of the conifer species, pines and things of that nature. But we will also be, we are looking into developing some programs to get people interested in cicadas and kind of put a positive light on it, and get people excited about these insects because they are pretty cool. They're very large and kind of gross, but they're really cool insects. They don't harm people in any way, and they have a really fascinating life cycle and everything. So yeah, keep an eye out for information about the cicadas and for further updates on how we are going to handle tree planting.
Thanks for sharing about that, Sean. That's pretty epic that the cicadas are coming back in the year that we're launching 10,000 trees. But
yep.
Well, we're just about at time. I think there was one more question that I think I wanted to touch on here. Just as we consider the impacts of climate change and how it affects the work that you're doing, and combine that with the fact that a lot of our population who has been historically marginalized will be facing those effects of climate change firsthand, and in many cases before the rest of the population. What are some ways that your organization is supporting, or the work that you do is supporting things like equity and considering those frontline communities? I'll leave that for whoever would like to jump in.
I'll go first. Often when I talk to someone, we do a lot of site visits, like I mentioned, where we're standing around in someone's yard and they're dealing with flooding, which is something that happens more often with climate change. Often that person who is dealing with flooding, who is down in the valley of our neighborhoods, the hills go up and down and there's these little valleys. And often the people who are dealing with the flooding are, there's not enough room in their yard to plant enough rain gardens to deal with it. It's really up to the people who are up on the hill to build those rain gardens and do a good deed for their neighbor. If you look around, often those old houses that used to be in the valleys have been raised, and there's affordable housing often, and that's not fair for those people to have to deal with excessive flooding that comes from the people above them. So if you live on a hill and you live up, and you think, well, I'm not really dealing with flooding, and am I really doing any good? You are. You're doing a lot of good if you put in a rain garden and you live up high on the hill. Makes a big difference to your neighbors.
That's really great insight. Thank you, Susan. Perhaps one more response if anyone is up for it.
I'm happy to go. Susan, interestingly, when the flooding ordinance that Jerry got passed through City Council passed a few weeks ago, we had a number of community organizations that supported it, and I was really proud that the local Sierra clubs support, wholehearted support of not having development happen in floodways and flood zones in Ann Arbor, included a caveat that if there was any disproportionate harm or removal of potential or actual subsidized housing or low-income housing due to the ordinance, that City Council also offset that change So we asked to have the stormwater ordinance augmented to include an equity component. Didn't end up getting included, but hopefully it raised some awareness to the need that Susan brings up very specifically. I think, Zach, to your question, it's really important for us all to think about your question, because, you know, when in the places that I've worked, when I worked at the city and the Watershed Council, and up until recently at the Sierra Club, I was like, it's like somewhere between 90 and 100% white people. And that's not our community, and that's not who we serve, and it's not the auspices of our work. And it's a disservice in that work. We can try really hard to represent our community members who can't be at the table, and especially when we talk about governmental initiatives, talking about how the government invites people to be participation oriented, how we hold meetings, what time we allow people to be in places, what access parks have. You know, it's really, we have a history of being really, really bad at this. And that is wholly true. I'm not calling out any individuals, it's our cultural history. And the Watershed Council, 100%. We were all white organization until just this year. And how can we represent the folks who are subsistence fishers, people that need to fish to be able to eat? How can we represent those people when we all have like kind of cushy jobs? That's really hard. Or people who fish because it's a cultural tradition from the countries that they come from. I can't put myself in that mindset. That's impossible. I think we have more work to do than we've ever considered on this topic. And we can't do enough. I'm really happy that my organization is trying really. It's a slow road. It's a really slow road. Change policies, change hiring practices. But that's the easy stuff. And we're still struggling to do that sort of stuff. I mean, all of our organizations are. To get to the meat of the matter, where you like have true inclusivity and equity in decision making, like we can't have hierarchical meetings. We just can't. I'm really proud of your office in the hiring scheme that Missy has undertaken. She has been trying on this and within the construct, but it needs to be pushed on. And I'm really, really happy that you asked the question.
Well, I'm really, really glad to hear that the recognition that it's something that the recognition that this is an important thing to do, and that we do have a lot of hard work ahead of us. I want to thank you all for coming tonight and for sharing about your organizations. I think I want to leave the viewers with just a reminder that your actions do matter, as Susan just mentioned. They do have an impact. You can have a real impact on your local green spaces. And everyone who has presented tonight, each of their organizations have adapted to COVID. And so there are ways that you can still be involved right now. So on that note, we are over time. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate hearing from each of you. And the applause would be deafening if we could hear it.
Thanks so much for having us, Zach.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Cheers.